folks. Welcome to another day, another week, another episode of Wine, Reel, and Print. My name is Kevin. I'm your co-host here today with...
Why did you do that? Why did you switch it up? I am Ryan, the co-host as well. You are throwing a curveball right at the start. I think that's great, though. That's how you really get a good conversation out of either of us. I think is you got to throw something.
A wrench in the stick.
Yeah, it makes you think. Keeps you on your toes. Exactly. I appreciate
it. Today we are here to talk about Australian New Wave.
I before going into this, I had no idea about even this, movement is a better way to put it. Even though obviously there's probably a new wave for every place. Yeah. And now I'm starting to realize that, and I was like, okay. And you start to kind of see where this comes from. Yeah. And I'll also be fully honest that I definitely looked at Australia and Australian movies and things as this other thing. And I even told Kevin once when we were talking, I was like, Australia just seems like a nothing place. It just seems
what's out there?
when I before this, when I thought of countries, and I'd be like, oh yeah, and I was like, oh yeah, Australia. That is a place that's this kind of stepbrother you don't really want to think about. Yeah.
Literally.
And it has some influence, and it's just kind of known as all of these things. And we've talked about Priscilla, which is a very Australian movie.
Yeah, that definitely fits in this.
And it definitely fits in this. Yeah. And I will say, there is a trend in all of these. Mm-hmm. There is a certain Australian aesthetic that now I have a better understanding.
I'm glad.
Yes. Yeah. And so I appreciate throwing that at me. Yeah. Yeah. Because I would have never known to go here.
Yeah. Because I definitely wanted to, at least with coming up with some of these podcast episode ideas, trying to come up with things that are maybe a little off kilter or somewhat off the niche of what would normally be discussed in film podcast spaces. Yeah. So I feel Australian New Wave is very, very niche. I feel most people don't know about these sorts of things, but they are aware of these actors, aware of these film properties. So
yep.
I think it's a great discussion, and I definitely learned a lot about film history. I was doing some even history research for this because I feel it's important to understand a country's political and socio-political status when it comes to the development of a lot of these things.
Yes. That's such a good and there's just so much.
Ryan's eyes just lit up.
Yeah. Well, there's just because that sort of thing, having a historical perspective on things is what gets me going. That's the thing that I really like. And Australia is steeped in so many things that are unique to Australia, but also very familiar, especially to Americans.
Right.
Australia comes about.
Brother is a great
exactly
description of it.
Yeah, and so you get the colonialism aspect that I think we understand very well. That's very American. If you know anything about America, you have this understanding of those dynamics and what it means to control and to conquer a place that is not yours to begin with, and then what it what that does to a society. Because there is a certain, I'll call it a poison, that kind of seeps into a people. Sure. But you really have to, I think Walkabout of these four movies is the only one that really talks about the dangers of it or what that looks like. And I think it certainly is the most explicit. But I think probably in Australia, it plays a huge part in it, just like it does in America. Yeah. Yeah. It's just an underlying thing that we kind of take for granted as something that seriously made us is this frontier mindset.
Right.
like always pushing the line and the border and what it means and being entrepreneurial, and especially Australia. I mean, we're talking about like people, like so many people just kind of very similar to like California, for example, when you're kind of like living kind of in the boonies.
Yeah.
Like you're kind of making it on your own. That's such an American thing, and it's an Australian thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got it there. And definitely what makes it unique is their landscape. Like, it's so prevalent in these movies, more so than in American cinema. I think, just kidding.
Yeah. But yes,
like
that was the right direction to think, because it feels, obviously America is so powerful as an image.
Yeah.
But Australia is
equally as powerful. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Every single one of these movies has something that ties it into the Australian natural experience.
Exactly. Yeah. Great.
Wow, that was an intro.
I love that.
Yeah.
That was great.
That was really good.
Brought in all the juices.
So you want to give the people an idea of what movies we're talking about?
Oh yeah. Oh shit, I was about to jump into it. Yeah.
Yeah. What give us the top the fave four, and then we'll jump in.
Okay, yeah. So fuck, I don't have a list.
Here, I've got it.
Okay.
Do we want to go in order of time, or do you have an idea? We'll jump here. I'll
just
do this.
List it.
All right. Mad Max.
Boom.
We all kind of
directed by
George Miller.
Oh yeah.
The director of
Happy Feet.
Yes. Exactly.
And Babe.
Yeah. Did he direct Babe or just write it?
I think
he directed it too. Yeah. That's all you need to know that he's ever done.
And then the entire Mad Max series.
And
that's actually his entire filmography, I think.
It's a lot of it. Oh, and then he did 1,000 Years of Longing, which has that new George Miller sheen. And then he did, I think, Death Becomes Her, or
cool, like another thing.
Yeah, or
I forget.
Oh no, The Witches of Eastwick.
Oh, nice.
Another, like,
I've heard of this.
What was the movie I just mentioned? Oh my god, it just left my mind. Anyways,
1,000 Years of Longing.
And then there was another witch movie, but Death Becomes Her.
Oh,
they both kind of came out at the same time as the Witches of Eastwick.
Oh, nice.
So I kind of get those. I get those
all
wires
together.
crossed.
Yeah.
But for those that don't know Mad Max, in the ravaged near future, a savage motorcycle gang rules the road.
A motorcycle.
Terrorizing innocent civilians while tearing up the streets. The ruthless gang laughs in the face of a police force hell-bent on stopping them, eh? That's Mad Max.
Wow.
That was not an Australian accent.
I feel like I'm in the outback.
Yeah. Oh, did you think that was Australian? I don't know. It was just an awful something accent.
It felt
some British colonial accent.
Yeah.
So yeah,
the first in this series that everyone knows now. Yeah,
everyone knows now, and I think you can watch this and you start to see what he's trying.
The inkling.
Yeah. And eventually, when he came too early for his cinematic form in some ways, and he ended up, I would say, perfecting it.
Much later.
Yeah, much later in a certain thing. But so that's Mad Max, 1979.
Ooh.
Up next,
door number two,
Picnic at Hanging Rock.
Peter Weir.
Yeah, Peter Weir.
Yeah.
1975. I'll just give a brief description for all of these.
Sure, yeah.
In the early 1900s, Miranda attends a girls' boarding school in Australia. Whoa, Australia. What are the chances?
What a coincidence.
One Valentine's Day, the school's typically strict headmistress treats the girls to a picnic field trip to an unusual but scenic volcanic formation called
Hanging Rock.
Yes. Despite rules against it, Miranda and several other girls venture off. It's not until the end of the day that the faculty realizes the girls and one of the teachers have disappeared mysteriously.
Yeah.
These descriptions are so funny. Picnic at Hanging Rock. So that's very weird, interesting vibe. Very vibe.
Very vibe.
Yeah. It's a vibe movie. Then we have Dead Calm.
Mm-hmm. Nicole Kidman.
1989, Philip Noyce. Nicole Kidman, Sam Neill, and Billy Zane.
Yeah.
The voice of I keep doing that. They do this in On Cinema as well. The voice of Riku in Kingdom Hearts. If you've ever played Kingdom Hearts.
I don't.
Oh.
I don't. Sorry.
All right. Where's the stop record button? Let me see if I can find that. And the fire button.
Ejector seat.
Ejector seat. Exactly. So Dead Calm is an Australian couple takes a sailing trip in the Pacific to get over the recent loss of their son. While on the open sea, they come across a sinking ship with one survivor who is not at all what he seems. No, he had a great vibe.
Yeah, he seemed nice.
He seemed really cool.
Yeah.
And
he
then,
was a cutie.
And then to finish it off, I think is kind of it's the earliest of all of these, but I think this will, if you're down, this this is a good dessert to kind of wrap up the Australian experience.
Sure, yeah.
I'd hate to end on Dead Calm. Under the pretense of having a picnic, a geologist takes his teenage daughter and 6-year-old son into the Australian outback and attempts to shoot them. And I remember reading this before we did it. I was like, oh no.
You're like,
this
I don't
is gonna
want
be
this.
rough.
Yeah.
When he fails, he turns the gun on himself. I don't really know if that's... And the two city-bred children must contend with harsh wilderness alone.
The commentary mid-sentence.
Yeah. They are saved by a chance encounter with an Aboriginal boy who shows them how to survive, and in the process underscores the disharmony between nature and modern life. Very, very interesting movie.
Yeah.
Nicholas... Oh, man, I'm going to butcher that last name. Roeg, we'll just say.
Sure.
And he directed The Witches...
oh no.
1990. It's Angelica Houston.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And I think it's based on Roald Dahl.
Oh, nice.
A Roald Dahl book.
Yeah.
But another witch connection. He directed The Man Who Fell to Earth.
Which connection?
Which connection? The witch one.
Yeah.
No. The
Which connection?
The witch. The witch one.
Which one?
The Man Who Fell to Earth, which is David Bowie.
Oh, yes.
I've never seen it, but it's a
thing.
It's a thing. People like it. And then the other movie that I've seen of his is Don't Look Now. Takes place in Venice, has Donald Sutherland, also about the loss of a child.
Huh.
But
There's
it's a horror
theme
movie.
going on here.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And so, yeah.
Never heard of it. Cool.
This is the Australian experience.
This is collection. So, yeah, why did we pick these? Just to try to get the breadth of...
Yeah, I think so. I
think Mad Max was an obvious choice.
Yeah, Mad Max was obvious. Picnic at Hanging Rock, I'd heard a lot about.
Also obvious. Because Peter Weir is very influential in this.
Very influential.
Bunch, yeah.
Yeah, probably the most influential in terms of creating a varied amount of films, doing a lot in the industry.
Because he did Truman Show.
Yes.
Dead Poet Society.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's great. People love him.
Yes. Yeah. And he's a director with a vision and a style, and he went for it. This feels so different than those movies,
other ones,
though.
Yeah. His other movies.
Yeah, his other movies. Like it
totally.
just. But it also, he's a director.
Feels like his movie.
Yeah, and he's a director, and this is just good directors. You can trust them that they are trying to say something, and they are doing it on purpose.
Totally.
And it doesn't feel like a mistake.
Yeah.
So Picnic at Hanging Rock, great for that.
Walkabout and Dead Calm was bookends.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way. And Dead Calm is pretty modern, and definitely very typical is what I'd say too.
It felt
in some
like
ways.
B-movie to me.
Yeah. And then Walkabout is
art.
Yeah. And I think it makes sense that would be the one to
start everything.
Explode everything onto the scene.
Potential.
Yeah.
So I had just history stuff or film history, whatever. And just to keep you involved, I'll ask you some questions. Conversation.
I love it.
So we're talking about Australian New Wave. And I think the operative word is New Wave. It is a film movement that starts in France in the 60s or 70s. So what's your relationship with New Wave? I know you were somewhat confused or not completely understanding the aesthetics or all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
I will say French New Wave is the only New Wave I knew.
Yeah.
And that's the one that I think as a film student, it's kind of the one presented to you.
Right.
It's the kind of the obvious one. You've got 400 Blows.
Yep.
You've got, oh God.
Godard.
Yeah, you got Godard.
Yeah. Agnes Varda.
Yeah. So you have all of these movies and they have an aesthetic to them.
How would you define that aesthetic?
That's a good, well, they feel...
For you.
Yeah. For me, it definitely feels like realism. And it feels like, I mean, where movies weren't going at the time. So an answer, or I keep saying answer, a response to
answer.
Yeah. A response to, I guess, American cinema, but just like big budget, giant things. You have like, well, there's so many other things to focus on and to operate in. For me, a lot of them are pretty dramatic, is kind of what it feels like it tends to be. Sure. Black and white is obviously a great format for this sort of style.
Sure.
Kind of lose the fluff and just focus on these things. But I think beyond that, I don't know. That's kind of where I would leave it. Yeah,
that's a great starting point. I think aesthetically, when you look at form, obvious things are like jump cutting. Like that's a big aesthetic thing for them. I think presenting dramas are good. I think if you watch Truffaut, you get a lot more comedy.
Yeah, see, I've got no Truffaut.
Yeah, he's a great. I feel like you might really enjoy him.
I have a feeling.
Yeah. And then I was just to discuss it more.
The accent came out. You know, this one's gonna be good.
I mean, New Wave really got me into cinema, and so I love this stuff. And there's this book, I didn't bring it though, but it's about new waves around the country, and they kind of tie new wave movements to modernism and like kind of whatever the progress of society and stuff. And so when you see new wave movements popping up in like these different countries, it's usually like indicating like modernization,
like a technological innovation in that place.
Exactly.
Oh,
yeah, or just society in general, right?
Yeah.
Like they're able to build cities and like have film schools and like all these things.
Makes a lot of sense because film is technology,
right?
Like we wouldn't be here
Skill
without
technology,
the inventions,
right?
Like it's not just it's not just nature,
right?
Like it doesn't just exist. Like these are things that are created, and so that is a limitation to the form,
right?
And so you have to reach a certain point. Oh, interesting,
right? And then also tying it back to like film being birthed in the modernization of our society and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, that just being more evident within the new waves, like cycles of things. So definitely anti-Hollywood, like you're saying, reacting to like what movies could be. Yeah, answering. Because I mean, film is a conversation.
Yes.
You know, or everything's responding to something, or offering a thing to be responded to.
Yeah.
So you definitely see the relationship between American and Australian cinema so heavily just because of how similar all the things you said, but also like just the influence of film too.
Yeah.
So to connect this to Australia specifically, when you look at the progression of their government and stuff like that, there are certain things that lead into the Australian New Wave, right? So the Australian New Wave, the films that we're kind of talking about, all kind of land within the 70s into the 80s.
Okay.
So things that kind of helped. So before the New Wave, when you're looking at Australian cinema, struggling industry and mostly reliant on British and American productions. And so basically non-existent.
Yeah.
And so when you start to go into the 70s, Australian government changes from more conservative to more liberal social policies, specifically with like women, but also with just like art in general, and trying to distance themselves from Britain. And a lot of these policies are like trying to eschew British traditionalism and conservatism or whatever.
So like a new Australia. They're envisioning a brand new
trying
society.
to create their own identity and stuff.
Mm.
So in 1958, you get the Australian Film Institute. You get the Australian Film Commission in the 70s. And then Australian Film, Television, and Radio School in 1973. So you start to see, you have two prime ministers, John Gorton and I'm going to mispronounce.
Come on.
Gough Whitlam.
Definitely. Gough
Whitlam. These two guys are pretty influential in terms of creating this environment for the industry to start to bloom and blossom.
Yeah.
And then lastly, you have the R rating in 1971, which pretty much creates Ozploitation, which is maybe a good intro into Mad Max.
Okay.
Because Mad Max is like pretty symbolic of that kind of subcategory of Australian New Wave.
Yeah.
Where you see more violence, more sex, more just crazy narrative and design. They called Ozploitation. I think Quentin Tarantino actually coined the term.
Classic.
So yeah, let's go into Mad Max.
Sweet.
And like, what did you think about this movie?
Yeah.
What was screaming at you from the get-go? Something
interesting was I did a little bit of reading on Mad Max, and turns out George Miller was actually like a nurse or worked at a hospital and had seen a bunch of injuries, especially a lot of car accident injuries and things like that. And a lot of those injuries, I guess, bled into this movie. A lot of his friends growing up died in car accidents and things like that. And so there was this idea rattling around, and it's interesting to kind of hear. He ended up hiring a journalist, because that was kind of like something he was kind of like known at the time, and a lot of like he had read a book about Citizen Kane and about like great screenwriters, and some of the best, especially in the early age, were journalists at first, like Mankiewicz, I'm pretty sure was. And so he thought the same thing. And kind
Citizen Kane.
Yeah. Sounds like it. Oh, yeah, and Citizen Kane is that sort of thing. It's you get a sense just hearing how Mad Max was made.
Sure.
Very
Grum.
Very like this. We're figuring this out.
Yeah.
There wasn't just like that's a studio that was building this.
Right.
So you definitely get that sense.
Super indie.
Yeah, super indie. And so it's like the best produced B movie I've seen.
Yeah.
Like you can watch so many of these other kind of exploitation movies and things like that, and so often they don't go all the way, or like have really great action sequences and effects and things like that.
They
and
just
this
don't
one,
have the resources.
They don't have the resources, but this one committed to having
could do all the things,
to do those things. And that was really cool to see that sort of thing. So my relationship with Mad Max, just real quick, it was Mad Max Fury Road was the first one I ever saw.
Yeah.
And I love that movie. I thought it does what it's doing perfectly.
Yeah.
It just does its thing.
It's like the greatest action movie ever.
It doesn't try to be anything else.
Yeah.
And that's the thing we always talk about. It's just like commit.
Pick a lane.
Yeah, pick a lane, go with it. Ooh, pick a lane.
Yeah.
Wow. And so George Miller has that. And you can see in this how he's, even with the tools that he has that in his mind. Like he knows what he's doing. He even knows the kind of angles that he wants. And he's
costumes.
And he's someone who's willing to get wacky with the angles, get wacky with the costumes. Like it's
acting.
It's also one of those things where, like, obviously I think it's now getting kind of beat to death, and it probably, even when this comes out, it'll be even more beat to death to say like, oh, this is made by AI, or like these sorts of things. But there is something where you watch about the costumes in this, where it's like, these were made by an alien.
Yeah.
Like I don't, like I'm looking at them and I don't understand any part of the costume.
Right.
Like it's just something so foreign.
Right.
I get this when I watch Eastern European movies as well. Like there's just something so different about the world, about everything, about
look.
how they speak, like the look, everything about it. Like no other society or culture has that effect on me.
Sure.
For whatever reason, it's those. It's these,
those are great things to point out.
Yeah. And so I definitely got that from Mad Max, especially this one. And you can eventually see Mad Max Fury Road is also the perfection of that form.
Yeah.
Like what the costumes look like.
Right.
And I think the second Mad Max, though I haven't seen the whole thing, is also it really it's now even more post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
Because this is kind of
It's
post-apocalyptic.
still real world-ish.
Yeah.
Like you could still see it being rooted in today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
that's what I feel like the biggest issue was with the movie.
It's weird.
Yeah.
It's so weird because it almost feels like he's not really paying too much time to it at all.
Right. Like the movie in general, or
like the movie in general. Like I guess what I mean is like there's not a lot of explanation given to why.
Anything.
Yeah. Like I have so many questions about like this police force and all of these things and what's going on. Like, and we're enforcing laws for what reason?
Right.
And it's not trying to do that. It just, and even from kind of what I briefly read, it's just kind of a veneer to get away with the plot.
Yeah.
Like it was an idea and they're like, okay, we can't set this in modern times. It has to be kind of post-apocalyptic to make it a little more believable.
Sure.
And now, I mean, Mad Max has really dived into like understanding exactly why it is. The world now has so much more purpose and meaning.
Sure, totally.
And so I see that. I have good things to say about it.
Yeah.
And I like
That's great.
I like so many things. It also just felt like a foreign language.
Yeah.
And even more foreign than some of the movies we've like. It's just something so
different,
strange.
Yeah.
And I think that's also what happens when you kind of go toe to toe with an actual artist.
Yeah.
Is you start to be like, whoa, I just got a window into someone's mind that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I kind of get that with Walkabout too. Is like this, I just stepped into
It's
a totally
so
different
powerful.
dimension.
Yeah.
And I think Picnic at Hanging Rock also had that, but
moments. Yeah.
And I think my relationship with some more modern filmmakers, I would say the style is more like theirs versus Picnic at the Hanging Rocks because that's just what I know.
Sure.
But I think Picnic at the Hanging Rock at the time probably was very like,
Establishing
what
that
the
look.
fuck is this?
It's so different.
Yeah,
It's
that's
so amazing.
that's kind of my Mad Max understanding. What about you?
Yeah.
What's the
those
how's
are
Mad
great.
Max sit?
Yeah, those are all good things. Just to like briefly summarize some points, like the relationship to Fury Road and like how developed this thing is now. I think that's a great, just seeing the progression, because I haven't seen like any of the first 3 or 4 Mad Max stuff, so it's cool seeing the first one. I was like, it's cool. It's cool. It didn't like blow me away, but I thought it was like important to watch and see. I liked some of the acting and the costumes and like the car design. Like he obviously, like you said, he knows what he's doing. He has a vision, and you can ultimately respect that at the end of the day. I just I don't really have anything more to add, I guess. I think like I had read the term outback gothic.
Ooh,
I feel like that really applies to
style
this.
that they're wearing and all that shit.
You know,
yeah, so weird.
It's just so rugged and really tied
leather.
to the Australian identity. So, I just like really like these terms and like like learning about this this place and stuff. How do you, just to like point out the obvious, how do you think Mad Max ties to the Australian identity?
That's a good, obviously it's the road.
Yeah.
And I think that ends up, Priscilla does the same thing too. And
tying it back to that story of him working in the hospital too, I think. Like it's a very, very real experience affecting their lives.
Exactly. Like the people dying on the roads, cars. This is, and it's so American too in a lot of ways.
We
can really understand that.
those John Carpenter movies. He has the car movie, I forget.
Oh, Christine?
Christine.
Did he direct Christine?
I think so.
Yeah.
And then Overdrive was like a Stephen King one.
Yeah. So yeah, that's happening also in America. But so that is playing a big part, is what that how that kind of fits in. It's another thing of like, okay, this is Australia. Mm-hmm. This is a part of Australia. We're not getting the in a lot of ways the beautiful scenery of Australia. We're getting the desert, the vast expanse of this land. Yeah. And it's perfect for what the kind of movie they're making, obviously.
Sure.
And you can even say it's kind of post-apocalyptic without it being so much so.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be my connection, because I think that so many of these movies are a place. Would be something like, that's the thing that always hits me, is like they feel just so unique in their location.
That's the obvious thing.
It's the obvious thing.
To,
if I were to try to think about what it is besides that, I'd have a hard time.
Yeah, I'm curious what it's saying about like authority and rebellion and like the institutions.
Yeah.
Because it is like police and stuff and violence. There's definitely like I think violence is pretty big in all these movies too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got that vigilante element to it.
For sure.
It has nothing, I don't think it has bad things to say about the police. The police are the good guys, and Max is a police officer.
I think it is a little bit of an allusion to like individualism and like usurping authority, or like authority isn't like good or isn't competent.
So I think another thing to think about individuality, the car. Is the like,
Western
exactly
thing,
like that is like such an extension of the individual. Once again, another American-Australian connection.
For sure. And these cars are like named.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're such a huge part, and that ends up being such a huge part of Mad Max movies and culture, is the car.
Right.
And what it means, and everyone's like all the things about it.
Right.
And this one is very
like an honor and like privilege.
So that's something, I think the individualism is very interesting.
Yeah, that definitely carries into Mad Max, like Fury Road and stuff.
Definitely,
in terms of like becoming, you know what I mean?
Becoming like
how
full...
all the characters are like, they're searching for some sort of
that's
like,
a good. They're all trying to get somewhere. Like they're all aimless. At first, but actually, maybe Max is the most aimless of them all, and the other ones are like he accidentally just stumbles into like the most intense mission of all time.
Yeah. Okay, so next film was.
Let's do Picnic. Yeah. Well, we're gonna go chronologically. Oh no.
Nope, we didn't.
No, we didn't. We're all over the map. I don't even care.
Okay.
But Picnic at Hanging Rock.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Yeah.
So yeah, thoughts.
Yeah, my initial thoughts were it felt like David Lynch. As soon as I watched it, I'm like, this is Lynchian.
Yeah.
When Lynchian might be Picnic at Hanging Rockian.
Yeah.
And I did a little bit of research online just to be like, what is Lynch's, R.I.P. But what were Lynch's thoughts on this movie? Like, did he ever say anything about it? Like, I was so curious. Nothing was ever said. I'd be curious how much it influenced him. It obviously came out before he was making movies.
Wow.
So there's it's just an interesting thing where it does feel like it has, like it feels like Twin Peaks a lot, and like having like this kind of alive surreal world.
Like the place is living.
Like there's something, and it gives no answers. And it just like lets it just exist, and you just have to understand that the supernaturalism and the supernatural is real. Like it's
like a part of the thing.
It's a part of it, and it's also one of the things that humans can never
understand.
Like it makes you, and it's very Lovecraftian because it just makes you mad. It makes you go insane. They're just and
especially at this time period when you don't have any understanding of these things, I feel like too. Because this is like a period piece movie, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think in like the early 1900s. Yeah. Oh, Valentine's Day in 1900.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nice. So yeah, I feel like hysteria and like superstition is like pretty big during this time period.
Yeah. And it is just the costumes are strange.
Yeah.
The setting is weird.
Yeah.
And then you take, and I guess it's kind of very Walkabout-esque. You take civilized society and you put it
into nature,
into the world.
Yeah.
And that's feels like a very Australian thing.
Sure.
Is this British culture being shoved into a natural world that is fighting back, maybe, or there is just naturally these are puzzle pieces that don't fit together.
Right.
Like the environment does not work with a city,
right,
or doesn't work. Like there are things that just don't compute.
Yeah. I was gonna point out the juxtaposition of like this very beautiful, like aesthetic, like the dresses and everything against like big, haunting, dark, like rock.
Yeah.
Like these two, like you said, just like contrasting elements playing off of each other. And I would also maybe attribute these ideas to like gender, and like the battle of femininity and masculinity against each other. And like, I feel like that's definitely big in this time period of like feminism.
True.
Influencing like culture and stuff like that.
So
I feel like that's a big element of this movie is like women's role in this new Australia, so to speak.
What do you think it's trying to say?
Yeah, I had a really hard time. This is definitely a movie I need to like go back to and rewatch, because I was like, there's something here. I have no idea. I don't know if I'm equipped yet to like get to a point yet, because it was heavy visual, heavy poetics, like super magical. Yeah, where I'm like, I don't know what any of this means.
Yeah, it had so much more to say than you can understand. And that's what I get from Lynch so much, is you like watch it and it just like hits you in the face,
right,
with all of these things. And
playing, Lynch does a lot of like feminine discussions as well within his stuff. So it is interesting how this predates Lynch, and he doesn't say anything about it.
Yeah, because I think like all of Lynch's stuff, not all of it, but most of them, women are the lead. Yeah. Or at least are like attached
heavily
to the lead.
Involved.
Yeah, heavily involved. And so, that is a very, very interesting element.
Another person this definitely influences, because she had brought it up, was Sofia Coppola.
Yeah.
Basically her entire career is like this movie.
Yeah, the virgin suicides being a very obvious one.
But even up to Priscilla, I think you can see like how this is like, even the other one, the Miss Antoinette.
Oh yeah,
is alluding to this in some regard too.
Yeah, it is like it has this very interesting,
like dreamy quality.
Dreamy but feminine
and haunting.
Yeah, and there's something just so interesting about that. I need to rewatch, now that I've seen this, rewatch
Virgin Suicide.
Yeah, Virgin Suicide, or just any Sofia Coppola. Yeah, I haven't seen one. Oh, Lost in Translation, I think was her, but I don't think that fits in this. I was just like, it just popped in my head. But
I mean, a little bit. You could see a lot of her, just like movies in general are about like women battling against societal structures in some regard. And I think there is like some mysticism or like magical nature to her films. Yeah. Even in Lost Translation, it's like very like wanderer spirit through the city type of vibe, where like they don't even exist, they're just like a ghost. Yeah,
that's something. To give props to, I haven't seen Lost in Translation in a long time, but to give props to that movie. Just that kind of idea, even it is really cool to have a movie where it's just like what a language barrier is like. And for anyone that's been outside the country and has been in places where you're just dropped into there is something weird and strange and dreamy about that.
Right.
Like you're around, but you can't interact. That's
great.
It's very interesting. But I pulled a lot from this, but I left being like, that was strange.
Yeah. Very strange.
Yeah. but definitely still felt like, okay, there's
doing something.
It's something there.
Yeah.
Once again, a director that has meaning and purpose and is doing things for a reason.
Yeah. I definitely will probably take another gander.
Yeah.
I had something I was gonna
say. While you're thinking of that, I don't remember the music, but I do remember the sounds.
Oh yeah.
But I'm pretty sure the music was very good too.
The wind.
But there was like that vibration, that bassy vibration. I think when they're at the rock.
Yeah.
It was all really, really cool. And even the way the rock is shot, it's like shooting a character. Yeah. And I think that's
angles and everything. It's a great point.
It's so good. And just so much intentionality with like making this presence. Yeah. Like, how do you make a rock?
The haunting.
Yeah. How do you make just a random like feature interesting and has a presence? And so
I think sound design does so much for you if you know how to use it and implement it well.
Yeah.
Because just a picture of a rock isn't gonna like move the needle, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true. I remember that pretty distinctly of like the sound design being really good and stuff.
Yeah, and you got to give the rock something. Rocks can't do much. So you got to give it some sound. You got to give it some things.
Just like Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah. Did you hear Martin Scorsese is his next movie is
producing.
Yeah.
I don't think he's directing. He's directing.
Yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio, Dwayne Johnson. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Or Hawaiian.
Wow.
A Hawaiian gang movie or like a Hawaiian crime movie. Yeah.
I'm in.
You're in.
I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm sold.
There you go. We got Kevin on. I'll be very interested.
I'm on board.
I think Scorsese is in an interesting period. He's in the Kurosawa late years where he's not, the bangers are here. Yeah. And in some cases, like some of his best movies ever are still coming out. So I'll be very interested because man, I just don't, Scorsese's got to keep going.
Yeah.
Like I don't,
till the end of time.
And Kurosawa's great quote that I think I've mentioned many a time is that he realized later in life how to really make movies and make them well.
Truly understanding movies.
And that like just, getting old, it just is so sad that it, like, your mind doesn't, but at a certain point you can't do 10-hour days. You can't do these things. And
like an athlete.
Yeah. And so we're so fortunate that we have so many of these things. But that's not neither here nor there. I'm now talking about something totally different.
Yeah. I remember my thing, it was Power of the Dog. This reminds me of Power of the Dog.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Just like the nature, the gender, the haunting
sound. Very aesthetic.
Yeah.
Like first.
Yeah.
Sort of film, like so visually interesting.
Yeah.
And using that to be poetic and to say things just in an image.
Yeah.
Like it can do that. Just having these girls in white dresses in the desert or in that already
says
is
so
something.
Much, yeah.
Like just that as a frame is enough to tell a story.
Right.
And now we're moving like, oh my God.
Because that is like, to bring it to America, I feel like that image is like the metaphor of like 20th century modernism.
Yeah.
Of like this really, when you look at like imagery of Manifest Destiny, it's like a woman dressed in like a white dress walking across the plains, like literally conquering the land around her.
Yeah, Columbia was that character's name.
Yeah.
Walking with the torch and stuff.
Representing this thing. I feel like that is the image of like colonialism or whatever whatever the label is, it's like this really beautiful idealistic culture or idea trying to conquer the rugged material world. Yeah.
And it's able to kind of talk about that without even that, like, that's not even the movie.
Yeah.
Like, it has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
This is something totally different. This is like a mystery movie with like the supernatural elements and things like that.
Right.
And it definitely leans into there. And it is being very explicit about it. There's no like question of like, oh,
we don't belong here.
Or even like, I was like even more like literally like with the plot, there is no, it's not trying to be like, well, maybe that something happened. Like, it's very explicit. Like, there is weird shit happening.
So. Yeah.
Definitely committed to it, which I like.
Yeah, no, it was great.
Yeah. So there you go. Picnic at Hanging Rock, directed by David Lynch.
Yeah. Briefly, I guess. How do you think this relates to Australian identity? Yeah. Just to like bounce forward, I think it's based off a book.
Oh.
So this is like Australian literature.
Oh, okay.
If I'm not
I think you're right. That's very interesting.
Yeah, it's a book.
Yeah.
Huh. 1967.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, then I know like Australian literature is also a big influence on like the new wave in terms of like creating stories and like source material and stuff like that.
Yeah. Interesting.
But yeah.
Yeah. And I think we also just made mention of a lot of things that are very clearly Australian.
Yeah. The nature.
About this. Nature, colonialism.
Yeah.
No cars.
No cars.
I think there are there any cars at all?
They're horseback like
it's all horse.
thing.
Yeah, it's like a carriage.
Yeah, the carriage thing.
Yeah. So no cars at all.
But definitely like the juxtaposition of like modern society and nature.
Yes.
Like we were saying. But yeah, that's why I said briefly, because I feel like we were just talking about that.
Yeah. And even and kind of what I think we'll kind of see with these next two is kind of nature being this indomitable force.
Yeah. Like way more so than these first two. Yeah.
Yes. It's so much more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Right.
And the cool thing about this movie is it made a rock intimidating and it versus where the other things are like, this like it's more serious that like
the consequences.
Storms and the sun and actual
animals.
Survival.
Yeah.
The next two are much more survival based.
Sure. Yeah. So what's the first one? Dead Calm. Yeah.
Let's go there.
Thoughts.
Do you want me to thought first or you want to thought first?
Yeah, you go.
You give me thought first. Yeah. This was a movie that you can see the poster, you can read the premise, and you know what it's going to be.
Right.
Like it's very clear.
Right.
I watched it and I was very disappointed.
Why?
It just it gave no. If I'm going to put on my story, my story cap.
Yeah,
there was no time when I was left to believe like, hey, this guy's okay.
Oh yeah.
Like they meet him.
Doubts.
Yeah, they meet Billy Zane, and he is almost immediately crazy.
Yeah.
There's
like the vibes are off.
The tension is gone, and it's basically like the third act of the movie I wanted to see for the almost the entire movie. And so like I can imagine the way I would have done this, which would have been a lot more like, oh, hey, we have this guy, and like the slow drip of like, hey, there's something a little off, and then there's that ship is still in the distance, and they're not immediately going to it like Sam Neill is. That's once again that doesn't happen until the third act of this other movie I was imagining. Sure. Like, you know what, we should go investigate that ship.
Yeah,
and there's so many things that are done that aren't really set. Like it's just kind of like goes, and so that was my big problem. Was it was just a third act as a movie.
Yeah,
and I kind of just wanted more time to sit and to feel suspense and things. Though, like there are points where, I mean, I think a ship is such a great like location, and it does a really good job of like making it so stressful and tight.
Right.
Billy Zane is like trapped in a room, and he's trying to get out and stuff like that. And once again, that only really lasts a little bit.
No, but the parameters are very concrete.
Yes.
And you know like what you can do within that.
So and that I love putting a movie in a box. When you make a movie.
It's like a pressure cooker.
It's so good. I think that's where some of the best creative decisions happen. And so that's one thing I'll absolutely give it props for is it had such a great, I think even just having that kind of broken down boat is such a great idea too, that has like the story on it.
Right.
Like the real story. I just wish they played with that a little more and just made it like they teased you with it a bit versus just like feeding it to you immediately. I felt like I was full right away, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. But what about you? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think you bring up great points of like it feels like a first draft, like half-baked movie. Or I was gonna say also, like, it feels like the movie's being written as it's like happening in a way, just in terms of like the ideas feeling super random or like not connected to each other. Like by the time you get to the actual third act, you're like, wait, what? Like what's left to happen? Like what's going on? Did they make it back? Like I just like didn't know where it was gonna go,
and then it just ends like with a whimper.
Like
it's just like one final thing, and then we're done. And it's like
it's just like doing what you're expecting it to do, but I'll like just kind of like quickly. It's trying to just get through the thing. It feels like because I feel like it definitely needed more suspense and like build up and just a little bit of more narrative design.
And imagine if you. Because they even like it, and it's just kind of it's like a reason to have them on a boat. But their kid died, and that's not even a part of the story at all. Like that ends up being like in the movie we can imagine. That's a connection maybe that Billy Zane's character has with Nicole Kidman. Like they're able to have
tricks her or something.
And then he is actually like listening to her about it, and maybe he has a similar experience. And so now they're connected, and maybe Sam Neill is thinking. There's something wrong with him, and she's like, "No, there's nothing." Like he's so like and then
dang, Ryan, you already got it.
I'm telling you, I watched it and I just knew what movie needed to exist. And so the remake I'm writing, it's gonna be great.
That'd be like great, like just a little exercise of like rewriting a movie. Yeah.
This one just feels so obvious to me more than any movie I've ever seen.
You should do it. You should do it. Just for shits and gigs.
I am doing it. That's how you really get things
it's
done.
Happening.
Is you say it.
Yeah.
And then
it's done.
Yeah, it's done. That's even better. Yep, done.
I got it right here.
You want to see it?
Yeah, got to go through the paywall.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, I thought it was great. It was like, to me, I think in my review I had said like as an art house movie, kind of bad. As a B movie, kind of great. Like I think if you don't put too much like importance into it, like it ends up being like somewhat entertaining and like you can follow it. It's a story. It's doing the thing. It's like action. I think the boat just like gives so much to it already in terms of like generating momentum through the thing. But yeah, it could have been fine-tuned more. The acting was like weird at some point, so I was like, that doesn't seem believable. And yeah, I can agree. You could land this boat a little better.
Yeah, exactly. You can get it into the harbor, get it on the dock. Because
it could have been a lot freakier.
Oh, there's so many good things that could have. The Dead Come in My Head is great.
Yeah,
I watched a great one.
I want to watch that movie.
Yeah, I know. I'm telling you, it's great. It's so suspenseful.
Yeah, like Hitchcock on a boat.
Yes. There's just so oh my god, that's a great. Yeah, thinking about just some of the great movies that we've seen lately. Yeah, it just makes it be like, dang, you could do something so good.
Yeah.
And
so let's talk about a good movie.
Yes, for me the best of the troupe.
Sure, yeah.
And I think maybe it's just because it speaks to me in an interesting way.
Sure.
But Walkabout. Ooh, you doing a didgeridoo sound?
Yeah.
Wow. So right out the gate,
didgeridoo is like.
That was what you did was good. I added on it and I thought I did that.
No, you harmonized it. It was good.
Just to go back to what I said earlier.
Yeah.
Read the premise. Was terrified.
Yeah, you were like, I don't want to watch this.
I was like, oh God. So he tries to kill his kids and then he kills himself and then they are trying to survive.
But that is so like an afterthought in this movie. Yeah.
It is.
Like the first 10 seconds.
Yeah. It's so interesting because that scene, the acting by the kids is weird.
Yeah.
It's stilted and in some ways it also feels like it's the kind of acting that feels feels dubbed.
Yeah.
Like there's just something weird about it.
Right.
That was just something that kind of just was like, this is just, but I also attribute that to these are young people.
Yeah.
And that's just,
probably don't know how to act.
The son was the kid was the son of the dad.
Yeah.
Or of the director.
Who's the dad of the movie?
Oh, is he?
No.
No, okay. I was about to say, I was like, no fucking way.
He's the father.
The father. He's just man.
Yeah.
Like no one has names.
Yeah.
It's
the girl, boy.
White boy.
Oh, yeah.
And black boy.
Yeah.
So fun.
The Dr. Seuss names.
Yeah, exactly. Dr. Seuss Walkabout.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Walk it like I talk it.
Yeah. So that was that was just something that's the only like weird thing I have to say about it was like there was just something that was but getting into it just felt so, and I think Human Condition Part 3 does this as well. Like to really go pull it. Like there's editing. And just the like and the traveling I think is such a great, I mean it's like a road movie but dramatic.
Road movie.
And I think that it just it adds so much possibility.
Yeah.
And to make a road movie Australian is a walkabout.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's such a great way. And walkabouts are kind of like a spiritual journey. And it goes in that way of like what it means to be maybe Australian. Yeah. Maybe just what it means to like
individualism.
Yeah, individualism, society, nature.
Yeah.
I mean, this feels like
all
and
the
it
movies.
was exactly.
Yeah.
It was the one that came at first.
Right.
But it is all those movies we talked about thrown, all the ideas are in this.
Yeah, yeah.
With even more. It has like the Aboriginal experience.
Right.
Which I think
is
really
super
colors
important.
it.
Yeah.
And I
to
think
all of this, to all the movies.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And I think that this movie said some weird things at the end.
Yeah.
But
I love this conversation.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, this is what it's about.
Yeah,
this is what this is why we did this podcast, was to wrap these things together and to connect
literally
new neurons.
Yeah, new pathways.
Yeah. But it said some interesting things about the Aboriginal or Aborigine experience that at the end was strange, but it wasn't. I didn't think it was demeaning. It felt like the, oh my God, I hate to say black boy as they're naming it, but that character, the Aboriginal character, the native character, he was presented
as a person.
As a person.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing like I would be curious, as I always am, to put myself in 1970, what was it, 1?
Yeah.
And watch this.
And see what
now, was I supposed to laugh more or feel like, oh, this guy's a savage or something more than
other things?
Yeah, because that's for, I mean, generally with movies, we've moved beyond that sort of aesthetic.
We hope to,
yeah, exactly. And I mean, things aren't looking good, folks, but at least for now it is uncouth to say those sorts of things, thank God.
Wow, nice word.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I like that.
Yeah.
I might write that down.
But so I wonder what it was back then. Like if there was like a much more like, oh, I don't...
If that's like targeting something present.
Yeah. But at least with the viewing now with our modern minds, it felt very respectful.
Yeah.
And it even did have something to say about like white people taking advantage of them.
Yeah.
With the whole painting of statues that were based on the likenesses of this people.
Right.
So obviously like profiting off of them, even twice over, with the workers, and then painting
history.
things, and then even painting it white is an interesting thing, and them getting white on themselves.
Right.
And there's so many things like that, and then also that the white people are the ones that are very clearly bad, and also just not willing to give, not kind. When the kids eventually like reach civilization, and the first person they meet is like, no, go. Get out of here.
Yeah.
I don't want anything to do with you. Close the door and distracts themselves with something. I forget what it was. But maybe it was like ironing a shirt.
Yeah.
But it was something like that where it's like, oh, nope, like close your eyes, doesn't exist to me.
Yeah.
And that's required to even do frontierism, colonialism, is this ability to put your blinders on.
Compartmentalize.
Exactly. And we're living in it right now as well. Like we're doing a podcast while the world is falling apart.
Yeah.
That's part of it. It's the only way you can survive in these kind of societies.
It's like rationalizing it through distractions.
It is. Yeah. And so that was an interesting thing. So it did have something to say that I think is a just and correct in my mind, because at least correct for me is humanizing people and being respectful to people and understanding the power imbalances.
Right.
And this movie fit my worldview with that.
because it's definitely targeting, like, in the way it's in the editing, and then the character, like the way they're like setting up these characters, it is like directly commentating on the effects of colonialism.
Oh yeah,
through its imagery, through its story, like through the narrative devices and stuff. Yeah, I think that's like a huge, another reason why I really enjoyed this movie was like the way the form and the themes meet, like at the perfect point, and you're just like, yeah, I'm here. Like, this is everything. Yeah, it's like saying something very clearly. Yeah.
You go for it.
I was just, what were you saying?
I was going to say, you mentioned something about the editing and how in your face it was.
Yeah, editing is super slap in the face.
Yeah, super slap in the face. And obviously plays with a lot of the things that we're saying. And all the things I had mentioned, the editing is saying it by a lot of a number of times, juxtaposing
the Kuleshov effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The Kuleshov effect. Depicting what the Aboriginal is doing, and then what a white person is doing in society. Yeah. And
then all that stuff with the painting the statues and like how that relates to the story that's going on.
Yeah.
And then the farmer people, and then like all these other mini storylines that are getting warped into this thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very great.
Yeah. And even like the Native Australian, that character is such an amazing artist.
Yeah.
And that another thing I also feel like is such a compliment to the culture that also that puts it in a place where I think it was meant to be intentionally fond of this people, and was not trying to demean them at all.
Right.
Because there was no joke in it. There wasn't anything like that.
Yeah.
Like, it was like this
point
really
and laugh.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was like really respect. The only thing was at the end, it felt like there was a little. I just didn't know what to think of that whole, like the whole like dance and death of that character. It was, I didn't know what because it felt like it
felt spiritual.
Yeah,
I'd say, yeah.
It felt so different than the rest of the movie in some ways, but it also felt like I'm watching something that I don't understand.
Yeah,
and
cultural
for me,
thing, yeah,
exactly. And what I've learned is that when you see something, especially from another culture, and you don't understand it, you sit in it.
Yeah,
you don't push it away. You let it happen. You
just wash over
exactly. You don't immediately go to judge.
Yeah.
So I let it wash over me, and I'm like, okay, maybe that's just
the thing.
The thing.
Yeah.
And if it is just the thing, then it's great.
Yeah. I just took it as like a representation of Australia in a way.
Yeah.
Like the spirit and stuff. Because this movie does feel very spiritual.
Yeah.
In some aspects.
Oh, totally.
With the form and everything.
Yeah. And it gives so much space.
Yeah.
And I love movies that give space. Paris, Texas being the best example in my mind. And this has that in spades.
In spades.
Yeah. Of just letting the environment do its thing, letting characters just walk.
Right.
And do their thing and be themselves.
Right.
And it's not in your face trying to do anything. I mean, and that's what's great about road movies is they have the potential of just in the act of moving that moves the plot forward.
Right.
And you can just have characters exist.
Totally.
And so, big fan.
I definitely had something in my review. Hold on one second. Yeah, it's like something to address or I don't know.
What you thinking?
I just had. I feel like this relates, but like, the way this movie is like an intersection of white gaze and male gaze, and I feel like that has a huge play in like the construction of the two main characters. Also, that also reminds me in terms of like humanizing these people.
Yeah,
I think I had read, maybe it was in Letterboxd, but I had read somewhere that like you don't see like a white woman or you don't see an Aboriginal person like in admiration or like being admired, like being the object of admiration, within from like a white woman perspective or something like that.
You're talking about not in this movie?
Or like you don't see that in film normally.
Oh, in film normally.
And they're doing that in this movie.
Yes,
for sure.
Because I would say in this movie,
they're definitely doing that. Yeah. And I feel like that's a huge part of like humanizing these characters is like through the gaze creating real people. You know what I mean? Like, like I feel like this movie, I don't know how to describe it, but I feel like this movie is so conscious of the director's identity.
Yeah.
And it's like being imbued into the form. Like the form to me is like, I know my privilege or perspective in the society, and this is what I have to say about it. And to me, I'm like, that is like what movies should do. You know what I mean? Like,
ooh, okay, this is interesting.
Yeah.
You'll love this connection. So to me, feels like the best a white person could do.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. Like in the most respectful.
Holding space and stuff. Yeah.
Where we've watched a movie that I feel like does not do that. Detroit by Captain Bigelow. Another like white perspective on something else.
On this sort of like effects of colonialism.
Yeah,
stuff.
and that feels like it absolutely has a white gaze all over it.
Sure.
And it feels very exploitive to be exploitive. Like it's disrespectful in my opinion.
Yeah.
Where this does not, and it definitely feels like it's holding space, it's giving respect.
Right.
And it has interesting things to say, and maybe even to a point of like going so far that it, as a white person, I don't even understand like some of the elements, and maybe that's just being a non-Australian or whatever, which I think is also really interesting. Like that's what I want more of. I always respect a movie that lets the realism dictate the story a little bit. It doesn't have to be a realistic movie, but it just like let that dictate some more, and it felt like it had that. Like it just had elements that kind of required explanation, but he didn't get into it.
Yeah.
It's not important.
Because sometimes you don't need it.
Yeah, exactly. Especially that like dance at the end. And just to give a little context, the character does this dance, is painted skeletal, I would say.
Yeah.
And does kind of and I guess this is a super spoiler, but Kevin doesn't care about spoilers.
Yeah, what's a spoiler?
Yeah, exactly. But does this kind of dance for the girl and the boy, and eventually in the morning they find him dead. And so it was kind of like a final, like kind of like dance.
Yeah.
And he's acting like super weird and is doing it till collapse basically.
Right.
That's the thing that I'm talking about when I'm like, there was something so strange. And the movie,
maybe that's metaphorical.
Yeah. And the movie doesn't go on and explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, I could see a weaker movie absolutely being like, what the fuck? And then going into town and being like, what was this?
Yeah.
I mean, there could have been something interesting about like
a resolution.
Yeah, thing, but like a little bit of like, she finds out exactly what it meant, but also for her, she wasn't really that interested in either. It doesn't feel like the kid in her, the boy in her, were that interested in knowing much of anything. Like they just kind of like were just
they're surrogates.
Yeah. That's what it really felt like, is like they didn't really, even as characters, they're pretty bare bones. Yeah. Everyone's pretty bare bones.
Yeah. This is a form-heavy movie.
Yeah. And so there's no really trying to figure it out. They're just existing.
Yeah,
and
totally.
And letting it happen. And the male gaze is very interesting in this movie, especially like using this young girl, teenage girl, as like an object of something.
Yeah.
I don't know if it goes as far as desire.
Right.
But it certainly is something. Did you think that the Aboriginal boy was interested in her from like that angle, like from a male gaze?
Well, yeah, I think I can't remember specifically, but I feel like there's certain aspects of the movie where it's like switching between white gaze and male gaze, and like centering certain characters at certain points, and then I just liked that like kaleidoscope effect of like who's looking at who, what's the thing? Is this the director's point of view? Is this like supposed to be the character's subjective thing? Like I just liked how it was all kind of like broadcasted together. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in terms of like what this all means or what they're saying and stuff, I just love that kind of like poetry of it and stuff.
Yeah, I love mixing and matching.
Yeah.
Like painting with a lot of different colors, but it works. It absolutely works. And even like that scene, it is a lot. That's a great way to put it, of like this kind of back and forth gaze.
Right.
And even like when it comes to like the white gaze of like, especially with that final dance, because part of me feels like the story...
Because the misunderstanding of the thing is the white gaze, I feel like.
It is. Yeah. And her pushing him away also kind of feels that way too.
For sure.
It did seem like there was...
kind of thing.
Because it did feel like right before that happened, he was like kind of like interested in her in a way, in like a very white way almost, in a very like society, our society kind of way, in quotes. And she pushes him back and pushes him away. And then they have that shot, which I thought was just so beautiful, of them in that abandoned house. And it's almost like they're playing house.
Right.
And they're like walking past each other like an old married couple almost. Like that the love and the interest is gone. Completely and they're just like, they don't even look at each other, and both of them are just like looking away, and like they cross like in a doorway at the same time almost, I think. And they're just no touching, no mention. And then that leads to that moment. I just think, I mean, this movie has it all.
Yeah.
And it's so good. And it's a movie to be studied.
Yeah. Yeah. This is like an academic movie.
It is. Sure. Yeah. It's so good. It's crazy. So many things, but man, it is strange. It is just really strange. It's so strange. It's like another language.
Something I'm really picking up on is like unexplained like things. Like all these movies are just like doing it and then not really explaining why. But I feel like the benefit of most of these films, it's like it adds this mystery of like, you know, kind of alluding to what you said of like, what is Australia? Like it's this mystery thing. Like you kind of, it's like a black hole of like absorbing all these things, and then you just don't know. Like it just seems like a very cultural thing that they're going after, or like explaining maybe the time period or something. It's really cool. Australia. Bring it back.
There's this great Shaquille O'Neal meme that you'll sometimes see online, where he says like about a player in the NBA, like that he hated, and eventually, and the character, I was going to say, the player does really good. And he basically was like, whatever the guy's name is, we'll say Jerry. I didn't know Jerry had game like that. I apologize, or something like that. That's me right now. Australia, I didn't know you had game like that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I said anything before we did this. You got game.
The disrespect.
I was so disrespectful to Australia before this.
Yeah. That's what's great about these new wave things. It's like, oh wow, this exists. Yeah. Like this is a thing here. Yeah. They're doing it. It's like really awesome. Yeah. You know, it's unique. Yeah.
Yeah. And I got to go to Australia.
Yeah.
That's next.
My friend's in Australia right now.
Really?
Actually, yeah.
Oh, cool.
She's like, I don't know, honeymoon thing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but they're in Sydney, so yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've always been interested in going there, but damn, it's hard to get there.
Yeah.
It's so much further than you think.
Yeah, it's all the way out there.
It's really far.
Yeah.
It's crazy far. You'd think like, oh, it's just across the ocean.
Nope.
It's not like that.
18 hours.
Yeah. New York to Europe. That's the ocean us white people know of. Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, we can like make it across. Yes, exactly. Across the pond. But no, this is so much further.
Yeah.
One day I can't wait. And yeah.
Yeah.
Australian New Wave.
It's great.
What comes after New Wave? Last Wave? Big Wave?
Yeah, I don't know.
The Wave.
In terms of Australian filmmaking?
Yeah. Do you know what happens next? Yeah.
That's a great question.
That's something we're going to answer.
Catch us on the next episode of Australian New Wave.
Yeah, exactly. Not the next rap episode. That'll be something different. But
there's definitely, like when you look at these four movies, I think the key players are very influential on Hollywood in the following decades. So in terms of like developing Australian cinema, I wonder are there stewards of this movement pushing the envelope forward in terms of like bringing up the next generation? Like who is the next Peter Weir and Nicole Kidman, you know, in terms of like bringing the next thing on? Because we don't know about Australian cinema after 1980, you know?
Yeah. We as in the world.
Well, we.
I know. I certainly don't.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know.
They're a mystery. No one's visited Australia in 30 years now.
I mean, you'd see like the influence of Hollywood just like absorbing entire like industries. And I think Australia, maybe because of the Western bend, because of its relation to like American culture and politics, like it just gets taken over into this thing and doesn't develop anything after. Yeah. Hypothesis.
Yeah. We'll see. Maybe part of me feels like it at a certain point you stumble into the machine.
Yeah.
And there is
plateaus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there will be another new wave.
Yeah.
There will be another
answer.
No. Actually, yes. There'll be another answer to that.
Yeah, because it's a conversation, right?
Exactly.
We go back.
History is a conversation, especially film history. It's just...
You need something to react against before you can do that.
Yep. Yeah. And it's usually generational. They come in and they got something they want to say and do, and the old generation ain't cutting it.
Right.
Yep.
Because to bring it to today, the Talk to Me, that A24 horror movie.
Oh.
Australian. Or are they either Australian or New Zealand? I think they're Australian.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So there's definitely things happening.
Cool. Well, next time we'll head back to Australia.
Yeah.
Sure.
We'll get a little sequel going. Yeah.
Well, right on, folks. Thank you. I hope you all respect my boy, Australia.
Yeah.
No being mean to my boy.
Put respect on the name.
Yeah. But that's a wrap. So we'll see you next time. Wind Reel and Print is a podcast by Salad Brain Productions. You can find us online on Instagram at Wind Reel and Print Pod. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts. And please, if you like the show, leave a rating and review. We'll see you next time.